going to make a brief presentation from both myself and Sergio Bendixen, who is our chief political strategist and has been all along. Maybe the place to start is these past 12 months, we've had a pretty good run in a lot of ways. We began, many of you will recall, with the Palm Beach Project, which showed with Republican and Democratic polling pre and post that we could make some real progress, and we did on the polling. We've established 17 regional committees throughout Florida. We held 17 milk parties across the state, drew 15,000 people, got enormous coverage all across the state, plus national coverage on CNN, identified, as you know, 5 issue priorities, organized a significant legislative campaign in Tallahassee, established a 27-member bipartisan steering committee. And to this point, we're dealing each week, communicating each week, not only with you, but about 250,000, a quarter of a million other Floridians hope to deal with 500,000 by the end of this year, and then more. And I spoke last week in California, just getting started on a children's movement. I am coming up in the next couple of weeks and speaking in places like West Virginia and Pennsylvania, and then Kentucky and Vermont, all of whom are very interested in the subject of how to build a children's movement. So you ought to be excited and, frankly, kind of thrilled that other people are noticing this and seeing what's happening. So what I've said all along, Sergio Bendixen has said all along, we're trying to build something enduring, sustainable, and long-term. It was never, as I have said from the beginning, about any one-year legislative session. We knew how difficult this session would be. I don't expect a splendiferous legislative climate next year either. I hope things are getting a bit better in several ways, but it's still going to be tough. Let me go over very briefly the 5 issues that of first focus, the ones that showed up in the polling that we did in the summer of 2009. Remember, one of the 5 issues was access to quality health care. We did add through the legislature an additional 19,000 slots for kid care and the $35 million necessary to fund it. Very mixed blessing, and the truth of the matter is there are 800,000 or so children in Florida without health insurance. It's a literal drop in the bucket, but for 19,000 children and families, it will make a real difference in their lives. Second issue, you'll recall, the screening and treatment for special needs with the help of a lot of other partners and collaborators. Early Steps, a very important program, received $8 million in funding. Lots of other folks were involved in this. Indeed, this is not about any one group. It's about all of us together. Third issue was fixing the quality of Florida's constitutionally mandated pre-kindergarten program. There's sort of two headlines here. One is a very negative headline in my estimation, which is that, in fact, the already deeply underfunded voluntary pre-K program was cut by another $20 million. I cannot understand for the life of me how we can spend $51,000 to incarcerate a juvenile in Florida and not even $3,000 for a pre-K slot. Separately, we worked hard, got some legislative help from real leadership in both parties. As a matter of fact, we did manage to keep school readiness and voluntary pre-kindergarten together. They'll be housed in an interesting and I think potentially good relationship under the Department of Education. This is about early learning and education. A fourth issue you'll remember was the whole area of real support and information for parents. We proposed at a very small cost a creation of parent portals, 24-hour phone lines, multiple languages, connected to an internet base. Could have done this literally for $10 million a year in a budget that is close to $70 billion. It didn't happen, never got traction, needs to happen for sure in the future. And then the fifth area was high-quality mentoring programs. I would say a modest success, a quite modest success. There was in fact $6 million cut in funds allocated to high-quality mentoring programs. That straightforwardly is almost a 40% reduction from funds allocated the previous year. The governor's mentoring initiative was eliminated. You'll recall that the modern evangelist on the subject of high-quality mentoring was Jeb Bush during his administration. Now, having said all of that, there were some victories. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, for instance, secured, in fact, an increase in funding. But we are only getting started on the subject of mentoring. So let me focus for a moment now on next steps and ask Sergio Bendixen to succeed me here. And then after he talks, I'll end up answering some questions. If we really are genuinely interested in listening and learning, we need to do exactly that. So I will spend a very significant part of my summer with Sergio Bendixen and others in going to 15 cities around Florida and listening to people all over. We've already set up those meetings. They begin in Broward in June. That listening tour will be on the website. We're eager to have as many people as possible. You see it right here, but you'll see it on the website as well. So between June 2nd in Broward and August 15th in Duval County, we're going to be listening to folks, and then we'll come back to you and say, here's what we heard, and here's the consensus, and here's the direction that we will move. So let me ask Sergio Bendixen, who is ever and always valuable, to come here and give you a sense of strategic path, and then I'll come back and respond to some questions. Sergio.
Good morning to all, and thank you for being with us. As David mentioned, we're going to try to keep this discussion, this presentation to no more than 25 minutes. Let me start by saying that I am not discouraged by what happened in Tallahassee during the session. Of course, our success was limited, maybe even extremely limited, but we did show the political world in Florida that the children's movement has the capacity to put together an effective lobbying campaign. Our lobbying team in Tallahassee did a great job. Every legislator heard from us and was aware of our priorities and the rationale behind them. Our ground game was terrific. We had many of you attend the legislative sessions of the legislative delegations. Many of you visited your legislators. That had an impact. I think thousands of you wrote emails, made phone calls to the offices of legislators. That had an impact. David Lawrence met with the leadership, starting with the governor and the president of the Senate, the speaker of the House. That had an impact. We had a couple of press conferences to announce our priorities, to basically announce our disappointment at the end. We had a radio commercial. We had op-eds at the end to again show our displeasure with what occurred. So all in all, the children's movement was present, visible, and it tried very hard to accomplish its goals. Now, obviously, it was a very difficult year from a fiscal point of view. It was a very difficult year from a political point of view. But as David mentioned, we did increase funding for health insurance by $39 million, increased funding for special needs by $4 million. We have invested approximately $2 million over the last year and a half in organizing the children's movement. So that's not a bad return on investment. We need to do a lot better. We need to seriously consider what our next steps are. But again, I want to congratulate everybody that participated in the Tallahassee effort, because I, for one, feel that we did accomplish some important things. Now, where do we go from here? As David mentioned, we are about to embark on a listening tour during the summer that will take us to every region and major city in the state, where we're going to be meeting with you, the base of the movement, the most important people in the movement. In this first year of operation, yes, the strategy has been set at the statewide level, with David Lawrence having a lot to do with it, the steering committee having a lot to do with it, the consultants, the strategists, the staff having a lot to do with it. It's been from the top down, but that's going to change now. What we do, what our priorities are for the second year of the movement is going to be decided by you all. By the people that are active at the regional, at the local level. We're going to be listening to you. We are going to be taking what you recommend extremely seriously, and hopefully we're going to be coming up with a consensus. Let me just give you some general concepts of three potential strategies that we might follow this summer. The first one I would call it the legislative strategy. This would be a similar strategy to the one that we followed during the 2010-2011 phase. It would be based on just what we've learned, the lessons we've learned from trying to work with the legislature in this past session. It would require us to make some adjustments based on the lessons. It would require us to, again, examine our priorities, the issues. What are the issues that we want to fight for in the 2012 session? Try to come up with a consensus, a process to come up with a consensus on the issues, and maybe even a new set of priorities. So that's one approach that we might take, which would basically say we got started in 2011 in Tallahassee. We obviously did not get anywhere as close to what we really wanted. We can do better in 2012. Let's find out, let's figure out what our priorities are, how to fight for them, and how to create a consensus among all of the people that care about children's issues in Florida. Another potential approach would be what I would call the media strategy. This would be giving a great deal of emphasis to education and information. We would be very aggressive about creating a speakers bureau in each of the regions, each of the major cities of the state. We would try to speak at as many groups and organizations as possible around the state. We would seek as many television interviews. We would go to radio talk shows. We would write op-eds and letters to the editors of the newspapers. We would try to create an environment in the state that would focus the attention of leadership on our objectives, how to make children a higher priority. Give you one specific example. There's many people in the state that at the urging of one of the national foundations wants to make the reading skills of children from an early age until the third grade one of our great priorities. So that's another potential approach, potential strategy, what we might call the media strategy, where we would, in a sense, become preachers for the cause, but in a much more intense way than we have been up until now, where a lot of the preaching has been limited to David Lawrence's appearances. This time we would try to include many more of you, try to make it as regional as possible, try to bring the other organizations that support us, that are part of our coalition together. So again, so that we can set a different priority for the state in favor of children by creating a dynamic, by giving great focus to the reasons why we believe that our cause is just and an important priority for Florida. There's another final strategy that you might want to suggest. At this moment, we call civic participation. As you know, as a C3 organization, we're not allowed to be involved in direct electoral activity. But we can be involved in a limited way in encouraging our people to be civically and politically active. Our model, in a sense, as many of you have heard me talk about, is the Tea Party. One of the reasons for the political success of the Tea Party, which, by the way, in many states is also a C3, is that political leaders are fearful
of the consequences of not going along with the priorities of the Tea Party. I could easily see a situation where we not only begin this process by identifying the legislators in Tallahassee that were extremely helpful to us during this session and giving them an award. We might call them the Milk Party champions. And I would love to hear your opinion about this. Also giving quote-unquote awards, the Sour Milk Awards, to the people that were not helpful to us. This is controversial. We might not want to do this, but it's something we need to consider and need to think about. I could also think that maybe through existing PACs that are allied with our cause, like Bill Suplin's Children's PAC in Orlando, we might be putting ourselves in a position later on that if enough of our people run for office in some way, in some indirect way, again, the children's movement cannot do this directly, we could be helpful in electing people that are helpful to the cause of children. There may be many other strategies, many other ways of accomplishing our goals. Please give this a lot of thought. No final decisions are going to be made until we meet with you and we listen to you, the regional leadership, the leaders of the organizations that are allied with the children's movement. All of you are invited to these regional meetings. Let us know if you don't know the date or the place. Well, it's on the screen right now, so you can get a pretty good idea of the dates. I can see them here. The locations are still to be decided in many instances. But we very much want to listen to you, and based on that, we will come up with a strategy that will continue to make progress for what already has been, I think, a great success over the first year of its existence. Thank you very much, and I'll give you back to David to answer some of your questions.
So my headline on this is there are a significant number of directions we could move in, but we're going to wait to decide that until we, quite frankly, talk with you, get your ideas. We'll know more, a lot more, and have better ideas after all of that. So by the end of this summer, we'll have a much fuller sense of what we're going to do. Legislative session begins next year, as you know, in January. So the run-up to that begins much earlier than heretofore. I'd also emphasize that this is all about partnerships, collaboration, things we can do together. I've had discussions, for instance, and continuing discussions with the Children's Campaign, the Children's Services Council. There is not only one game in town. There are a number of games in town. Figuring out how to do things together is truly critical. We will launch in another week or so a new website. Michelle Cash, who is the first-rate web director for us, has worked the last 2-3 months on this. I think it's very exciting and meaningful. It will include a lot more citizen participation from you. So please get involved in it. We've launched a membership campaign. You know about that. Each month, some thousands of dollars are coming in from this. And some people give $10 or $25 or $50 or $250 or whatever. It all makes a difference being a member of the movement. And long term, I hope it fuels much of our activity. So let me go to a few questions. I'll go to 4 that I've gotten quickly. Then remember that we're eager and willing to answer all of them, so all the questions you have will end up getting answered, but online with you. One of the questions was in the area of VPK, or voluntary pre-K. What does keeping school readiness programs and VPKs housed in the same agency mean to both programs? There was a quite extraordinary effort on the part of some people, some very well-meaning people, to separate these two, to sort of say, we'll keep VPK in the Department of Education, but with the loss of AWI, because of the governor's decision on where he wanted to move jobs and a new agency, maybe that gets moved into that new department, or maybe it gets moved to DCF. We thought it was extremely important they were together because, in fact, early learning is a continuum from prenatal really all the way up to age 8, and it was not a foregone conclusion whatsoever that these would be together. We did have some real stand-up people in the legislature on this, not only some wonderful traditional advocates like Senator Rich, but also someone we worked with closely and stood tall on this issue was Senator Don Gates. So, again, whatever we do needs to be bipartisan. We need to work with a lot of different kinds of people. Second question, while it's still very early, what are your expectations for next session? Well, I think we're going to know a lot more as we go through the summer. Expectations begin with accomplishing more the next session, the one after. We build from the base of, we know from the polling done from both Democratic and Republican strategists, we know what the people of this state would support, what they most want to happen. That combined, blended with opinions from all sorts of children's advocates and experts led us to the 5 issues. So these 5 issues are clearly going to be truly important. Will we do some tinkering based on what we learn from other people? Absolutely. How that comes out, we'll know in the next 3 months. But we will have a specific legislative agenda. A third issue that is in the form of a question: what was the movement's presence like during the legislative session? Sergio touched on this. We had wonderful people, Monica Rodriguez and Mike Abrams, with a lot of help from David Abrams, one of our regional coordinators. Monica worked hard on this through Ackerman Centerfit. Lena Juarez from Orlando and Tallahassee was a big help during the legislative session. So with beginning with a team led by Monica, they're very connected. I'm proud of what they were able to do. Frankly, I was up there 8 different times myself. I can no longer afford to buy plane tickets to Tallahassee. I'm kidding you. In fact, on one occasion I drove, but that was because of the storm approaching. Having said that, we have wonderful people, and we will have wonderful people the next time in Tallahassee. I'll give you one more question that I've received. And why weren't we able to find any traction in the area of parent skill building? And the person goes on to say, I would think that's an important issue for Republicans. And, it's sort of like yesterday. I was talking to a Rotary Club, and a man in the audience, frankly, a bit angry, essentially said, well, it's all about parents, and if they would just do their jobs, things would be better, et cetera. Well, I think parents do love their children. I do think they care deeply about their children. They often don't know what to do. Parent and public awareness is truly crucial. It's not a Republican issue. It's not a Democratic issue. It's an American issue. It's a parent issue. It's a Florida issue, and so forth. I wish I knew the answer to the question. I don't know anything more fundamental to the future of children than a caring, knowledgeable parent. This first step was a fully affordable first step, even in this economic climate. What it meant was that 24 hours of the day, phone lines would be open in multiple languages. It would be connected to a website with all that information. You could call at 7 in the evening or 2 in the morning and ask about anything from how do I find high-quality child care, what is high-quality child care, how do I connect my children to health insurance, big issue in this state and in this country. I'm having trouble breastfeeding, or whatever it might do. Don't tell me it's impossible to do. We've done it for the past 10 years in Miami, 3 languages, 24 hours, high-quality, locally based internet website, etc. That's one of the things, frankly, most in the core of my soul. Those are 4 questions. We'll answer the rest of them that we get. I would say this, and I'll say it over and over again, and I say it every place I speak in this state and this country. I'll be in Seattle Monday and New York at the end of the week, and the following week in West Virginia and Pennsylvania, where people are eager to hear about this. But this is about building a movement. It's not a program. Long term, how do you change the priorities of this state? How do you change it so children actually become number one? People are eager to be inspired. They're eager to get things done. They're unaccepting of the way things are. And I'm confident that with your help and the help of many others, that we will have the fortitude, the long-term thinking, the heart, the soul, the resources to build a long-term movement for the children of Florida. Thank you so much. I'm always pleased to be with you, and I hope to see you soon. And we'll see you at these 15 regional meetings this summer. Please be there. Thanks so much.